everyone, welcome to another episode of Crash Cinnamon. This is your host McKenna. So we're continuing today with a topic about boundaries, and today we'll be focusing about professional boundaries. Now, professional boundaries are in different layers. There is boundaries you need to create between yourself and your co-workers, your colleagues, and then there is that you need to create boundaries with your organization as a whole. So for example, I'll give you the example of what I mean, where you state clearly that, for example, I'm not prepared to work weekends, so that is one way of looking at it. And then finally, the other professional boundary is how you protect yourself with the people you support. For example, if you're in social care or your doctor, nurse, whatever kind of job, especially face-to-face where they support advice, how you limit that so that your space is not invaded. So I will endeavor and will try and look at all three by giving examples. In fact, this is one of the things that or rather this is what made me want to talk about boundaries, and I couldn't start by the professional boundaries, start setting the pace of what boundaries are and talking about your own personal boundaries, and then now looking at boundaries in a professional way. So I think the simple way of starting this is saying professional boundaries are actually limits, just like in your personal boundaries are limits of how you want to be treated and how you should be, and there are limits, safety nets as well, so that you're safe emotionally, mentally, and also physically, in your workplace and in your workspace, and beyond that, in your career. So a lot of us, I feel, understand that there should be a boundary between the person you're supporting in your work. If you're an advisor, if you're a teacher, I feel people understand that a lot more and get that there should be a boundary. I mean, you're not going to be friends on Facebook with kids you teach, because of fiduciary responsibility and all these other kind of things, and how the world is so wild right now. You can be literally in hot soup by just having a social media page and being friends with somebody who's not supposed to even to be there. And we know teenagers, some of them are on there who are not supposed to be on Facebook, for example, or Instagram, or these other social media pages. So I feel that is not as difficult for people to grasp. However, I will touch on it lightly. I know people, because of your nature, some of you're kind, you go the extra mile, you want to support the person you're helping, and if you're not careful, they will latch on to you. There'll be more of a thing that they can't speak to anyone else in your office or organization. If it's not you're the only one. They come up with this idea that you're the only one who can help them. And it goes as far as they want to have, lunch with you. They want to thank you so much by sending you gifts and all these things. And when I was younger, when I started working, when I was, just before I turned 19, I didn't see the problem in, if a client wanted to give me a gift, like a card, or if they sent a thank you, like flowers. I didn't see the harm in that, whether they were male or female. But now, after working for a few years, more than a decade now, I now realize actually these gifts can create a dependency. They can make somebody believe something different about you. They may think it's an opening to friendship. So I just advise you, don't. There's ways of politely declining gifts and gestures and things like that. I know sometimes not all work environments would be, let's just say you can't say no in some certain work situations. For example, like in business, I know in financial kind of things, sometimes, gifts are exchanged here and there. So I get that. However, in your just everyday job kind of thing, I wouldn't really encourage that, just because it can bring a nuisance to you, even though it was, you didn't see the intention. And I'm not saying everyone who gives gifts has the wrong intention, but to be on the safe side, just don't. And also, this thing about being friends with your clients, I know also there's certain workspaces or careers that you end up being friends with your clients. For example, in the fashion world, in beauty, sometimes even in real estate. However, sometimes you have to just, I'd say, play it by ear and judge the situation, because people can just be so friendly and they invade your space, and they feel then they have an opinion of what you do and how you relate to whatever you do, so that's the only reason I'd say I'd be careful. So the main one I want to really focus on is supporting our colleagues, for example, who have communicated effectively that this is their boundary. For example, they're not prepared to work after a certain, after the clock hits home time, or they're not going to do things beyond their job description. And I know sometimes in all job descriptions now, especially, there's that phrase, or also you will do duties that your manager deems fit for the purposes of the role. And I think sometimes a lot of workplaces abuse that privilege, that line. They use it to throw anything at you as an employee. And it's very abusive, and especially if you're starting out, it's a career, you're young, or not even just young. I mean, it's something you've really wanted to do. It's a dream job. So you want to impress, you want to do good, you want to show you're part of the team, you're a team player. So you agree to be told, could you do this? Could you do that? Could you plan this event? Could you, all these kind of things. Could you go and pick up this? Could you use your card, and then you can claim it through expenses? Use your money. There's all kind of things that are. It's a muddy situation. So I think if you're able to establish with your manager the gray areas, and also just state your hard no, say this is what I'm prepared to do, this is what I'm not prepared to do, and that way you're safe. And this is because a lot of people are going through a lot of stress. They're worried, sick, they're getting home crazy hours because they have to do all these extra tasks that they've been given, and all because of this one line that duties to be given, and also there's most of the roles I've had to work some antisocial hours because of events, or you're giving talks, or you're having to visit a certain branch or things like that. So, and it's okay. I mean, if it's it's not a continuous thing, it's all right, because it's also part of your role and part of what you signed up for. I mean, that's okay. But when it starts being a continuous thing, then you have to question. So I'm currently supporting one of my colleagues because they actually told me I don't think I have boundaries, and they're really suffering because one of the clients they're supporting has really pushed them, and it really made her think, actually, do I have boundaries? No, I don't, because anything this client wants and says, they have a way of manipulating my colleague to believe that it's her role, it's her job to do it. And so my colleague is actually stressed, and sometimes sleeping because he's worried this client doesn't have food, or doesn't have this, is all alone, or this is not working, or they don't have this going, or and then she overshares. This client overshares about her personal life, about who she's not friends with, who she's fallen out with, what she wants, and that has been playing on the mind of my colleague. So she feels she has a duty to make sure this person is safe and okay, and that's not her job, bro. It's not. And I can see her suffering, and I actually had to call her to the side and say, okay, as your manager, I think we need to discuss this so that you're safe for your own mental well-being. Yeah. And another situation also happened in work, and it's made me think, as a woman, how do we support men in the workspace who, if the clients are women, they cross the boundaries with them, not because the man has instigated, but it's purely the woman. And I know you come at me and say, if the woman is saying something the man did. And actually, because I was there during this discussion, my colleague was very professional, even really tried to be kind and nice, to just say, that is wrong and improper how you're doing this, or how you're addressing me. And this client doesn't understand, hey, you're crossing about. And I'll explain the situation. So for example, when my colleague rings her, she will say, oh, my favorite man has rang me, you must be so handsome, your wife must be so happy that she has you in your life. Now when you listen to those kind of things, it sounds, it doesn't sound like it's a crossing of a boundary. It doesn't sound harmful. Yeah, it doesn't sound like, it sounds playful. And actually, if you're a woman, you'd be sat there and saying, what's wrong with a man being told, you're most handsome and all this kind of things, and your favorite man kind of thing. But let's put yourself in this colleague's shoe, who has a family, respects himself, respects his work. Why would you be claiming I'm your favorite man? And all these kind of things. And why would you be taking liberties describing me, saying this and that, and saying how you'd want to be my friend forever? And I actually realized we had a team meeting about this, and we joked a little bit, saying, oh, that's the problem of being a hunk. One of my colleagues told this guy, it's the burden you have to bear. And we were laughing. And actually I stopped and I thought, if that was a woman, we wouldn't be making such jokes, we wouldn't be entertaining it. But for some reason, because it was a guy, we can make jokes. And he was actually even putting it lightheartedly, but he actually said to me, I'm not prepared to continue talking to this woman because she really does cross the boundaries. And I actually apologized to him, and I said, actually, you shouldn't, and I prefer, if you want, I can deal with her directly. And I thought, yeah, we need to also protect men in the workplace, because they also face harassment, they also face very uncomfortable situations with females who are colleagues or clients, and it's not always one way, in the sense of, it's the man instigating it. And it made me think, oh my god, it must be so. He's professional, and he's he has a good sense of humor, and I'm sure he kind of laughed it off, but you could see there's apprehension every time he has to talk to this lady. And because he has to do this because he's at a very senior level, so he has to deal with some of the things. But you can tell if there was a way, he wouldn't. So I want to kind of ask you, if you're in a workspace and you notice your colleague who's of the opposite sex, yeah, and especially if it's a guy, because society has taught us that men do not get harassed, they're the ones who harass women, and to a very large extent that is true. So don't come at me for it. But it's true. It's really true. However, there's also the other side of the coin where men are being harassed and being stalked. They're being, mistreated. They're being there's a lot of sexual innuendos as well they have to endure, and because they take it on the chin, we don't get to see it as people are violating their personal boundaries, their professional boundaries at work. So support each other in the workplace, stand up for that person, or if you feel maybe their ego may be bruised, or speak to them to the side and say, okay, I notice you're uncomfortable about this situation. I'm really sorry you're going through this. Can I support you in this? Can I work with you in this project? Do you want me to lead on this so that you don't have to deal with this person? And if it gets to a point that is really bad, you don't have to work with this client. You can decide as a company or as a team or as a service not to work with this person, and explain fully that these are the reasons, because you are just not abiding by the rules. And actually, with such people, humor and downplaying won't work, because they do it often and they know what they're doing. You have to be very clear and firm. I don't mean rude, but clear and firm, and explain these are the boundaries. This, when you're dealing with us, this is where you can't go. So professional boundaries are not easy to set. And I remember when I first started working, I agreed to do a lot of things because I wanted to impress. I wanted to show that I'm a team player. I wanted to, grow and develop. But in the end, I was burnt out. I was tired. I was stressed. And some of the things that were happening also, I was not happy, And in the end, I was not growing because the time for personal development was taken by doing this and that. So one of the things I can encourage is to create solid professional boundaries. And one of the things you can do is just speak with your manager. And if your manager is a problem, speak to another person, and just state clearly, this is what I need, see the do's and the don'ts, and negotiate what can work, okay? Be very clear of what you're not prepared to do or what you'll be able to do, so that it's clearly set out, all right? If it's your work colleagues, if you're happy for them to be you can be friendly. You don't have to be friends. If you don't want to go out with drinks with them, or for them to know where you live. I have a colleague in my previous job who knew where everybody is, but if you asked her where she lives, she'd go round and round about it, but it was never very clear. And I used to think, why is that? Why do you want to know somebody else's business, but you're not open to share about, for example, where you live, kind of thing. It's crazy how when in retrospect, when you think about things, it hits you. There is a situation here, probably a boundary. And for example, you don't have to talk about where you live, you set up, even if you're married or not. It's none of their business in work, kind of thing. If you have children or not, none of their business as well, because you're there as work colleagues. It has nothing to your personal life is your personal life. And another thing is gossip in the workplace. I remember especially when England decided to ban cigarette smoking, especially in public spaces, and it meant even in workplaces you had to go to a designated area. And I came to realize in those ciggy breaks, that's where the gossip was. That's where everything was decided. All the shenanigans happened, And even when they came back to the workplace, they try, to create factions, and this one is doing this. So at an early age, I decided in the workplace, I will block people who speak around me if this conversation is not something I want to be part of. And no matter, and now I can actually block people and not hear what they're saying. My husband thinks that's a very strange way, and some of my friends wonder how can people be talking around you and not hear what they're saying. And it's because I trained myself. If I don't hear, and even though I'm within an earshot, I have trained my mind to switch off. Yeah, I only switch on if somebody calls my name, or especially if someone calls my name, then I know. And it's something psychological I had to teach myself, because I find there's a lot of unwanted chatter and so many things, idle talk, that I was like, oh, this doesn't help me with anything. So I realized even when I tell them or show them I'm not interested, they still try and get me into it, So the only thing was to ignore them. Yeah. So, and be consistent in your decisions of your boundaries, because if you're strong today and then new set of cool kids come into the office, and because you want to be part of and belong, you break your rules, then you won't be an authentic person, and they will see you're a bit wishy-washy. You fly with the wind wherever it takes you. So stick to your guns. Whatever you feel is not right, and don't be apologetic about it. Again, just like I spoke in the previous episode on personal boundaries, don't apologize for anything. However, saying all that, please best believe you'll have pushback. Not everyone will accept your boundaries, and your manager, your company will try in different ways to push your professional boundaries. Sometimes, example, they'll say there's overtime, and if you do this and that, or this and that, there's different ways they will come at you to try and test those boundaries you've kept. So just be on the lookout and constantly reevaluate. And I think one of the wonderful things I've come to know is, if you have a structure, if you have a plan for work, then you will not be stressed. You'll not be taking too much. That way, your professional boundaries are there, and the work balance is maintained. So one of the things you can do, especially where you're trying to say no to extra work, you're not going to take more work, is have a list, have a to-do list, that list is, you categorize and just say, these are the things I need to do. These ones maybe I can defer. These ones are not priority, so I can drop them. And once you do that, you'll be able to know where you're at all the time. And having a structure helps you really figure out, okay, this is my job role, this is what I need to do, this is where I'm supposed to be at, these are the things I'm supposed to be engaging in. Don't be agreeing to be organizing the office party and you don't have time. You have other personal commitments, family commitments to be doing. Don't agree just because you want to look cool and whatever. But at the same time, I'm not saying you should run away from everything, or because I said personal boundaries. No, I'm just saying be calculative, measure everything, and just see what works for you. Okay? So I wish you all the best in your workplace, in your career, and let's support each other in the workplace. Please don't be the one waiting for or the manager to come and sort it out. Be that co-worker who supports the other co-worker, or if you're a manager, support your team effectively. So yes, thank you for listening to this episode of Carson. As I always say, be the one who is the one to make the change. See you on the next one.